Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the talk on live streaming, being live streamed from the studios here in Orms in Cape Town. My name is Dirkie van der Merwe. This is my colleague Pierre-Arnold.
Good evening.
We're from a company called DPK Productions, and we've been streaming a whole bunch of content the last couple of months. We've made a lot of mistakes, so we're going to share some of them with you tonight. Please learn out of our mistakes and don't make them yourself. But basically what we are going to be talking about is Pierre is the technical genius and I am not. So I'll be doing most of the explaining so that we keep it as simple as possible. I'm going to rein you in, Pierre, when you start geeking out too hard.
Yes, it's fine.
What we are going to do tonight is we're going to talk about the system you have to create to live stream content from wherever you are to your end user. So let's talk about
Who are you?
What do you mean? No, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. So my role in our company is I am a producer, but obviously with the nature of our business, I've also become a cameraman. I've also learned how to do webinars. So it is a field where you've got to be, you've got to do multiple of tasks in terms to meet budgets and to make things work. So Pierre is the one with the actual streaming background. So Pierre, tell us about where you came into broadcasting.
Well, I came into broadcasting when I was lying on the couch the year after matric, about 6 months in, and a woman down the street phoned me and said, I'm busy eating everything for free in the house and can't work like that anymore, and I should start to work at Supersport. So I started working on the outside broadcast trucks, where I did a lot of rugby, cricket, wheelchair basketball, golf, Big Brother, you name it.
Okay, so that's, sorry, I want to stop you there. So basically what we are trying to explain tonight is how do we fit the Supersport truck into the back of your Polo?
Yeah,
essentially.
exactly.
Because that's...
Or in your backpack.
Yeah, so, and there are many ways of doing that. But anyway, sorry, I didn't interrupt.
So, yeah, but I started as an audio engineer there. So I did a whole course at MNet where we got taught all the theory of audio. But obviously the way I am is I look at all the different departments and I can still remember how the director sounded in my ear. And years later, after I've studied and after I've been a professional musician for 9 years, I decided I need some food on the table, and I went into video.
Okay.
And that is when I started working at the Stellenbosch University after that, teaching broadcasting, camera work, audio, all that.
Okay.
And here we are today.
So basically, the experience we had before the lockdown came from your university experiences in terms of streaming classical music to a worldwide audience.
And theatre, yeah.
Yes, especially from the International Chamber Music Festival.
Correct, yeah.
So we didn't go in quite cold, but we did not know how much we were going to learn in the last couple of months.
We thought that we knew how live streaming works, and then by day 3, we have a fantastic colleague, Christoph Snyman, who is also a technical genius. And me and him sat around my dinner table and we figured out a lot of the things that there's no info about really on the internet. That's the problem.
Okay, so let's quickly look at the ecosystem of getting a stream or content through this whole daisy chain to the end consumer or whoever you want to watch your stuff. So basically you've got a way of capturing that footage. So that could be your phone, it could be the Fuji, it could be a whole bunch of other cameras. So basically this goes into a visual mixing device, whether that be hardware, software, whether it's integrated in the platform you're using. We'll touch on all of those. Then when you've got your picture that you want to show with the end user here, then you've obviously got to get it into the internet.
How do you do that? How do you do that?
That sounds
There isn't
always.
It isn't always.
And then which broadcasting platform are you using? Why are you using that? And we'll look into things like Paygate, open streams, closed streams for communities only, etc. So I think let's start with the first element, and that's the source. So the most basic way of streaming would be if you go on Facebook Live with your phone. Essentially that's live streaming. You're live streaming whatever you're doing to all of the people watching your feed or that are your fans. So Pierre has now gone live, I think.
Not yet. So basically I can just go to Facebook, I press live, and then literally the second click start live video. And whoa, I'm live. And for those who's watching, we are actually demonstrating a live stream now via Facebook. I wonder if it will come up on my profile here so Jean can show the world that it's live there. So this talk is actually on Orms' Facebook page, Orms' Facebook page.
Yeah.
I'm an Afrikaans boykie, so I struggle. I don't think you can see your own live. Can you? No, you can go live there as well.
Okay. But anyway, so that's the most basic.
See on Orms' Facebook page.
Most basic way of doing it. Now, you can then obviously upgrade your source to a mirrorless camera or a professional broadcast camera, but then obviously, how do you get this unit into what we now call a visual mixer or a way of getting it into the internet? So basically, Pierre, do you want to show us how to set up a camera?
Yeah. So what is fantastic, so you can have, obviously you can have different options. If John switches to the computer now, you will see that that's actually the video I just did now, and you can, that's a cool thing about live streaming is it archives a lot of things. So you have documentation usually of events.
Remember, the internet is forever.
The internet is forever. So while we don't look at all my videos, so the basic platform that a lot of people use is Zoom. So this is the normal Zoom camera. John, if you can show that there, this is the normal Zoom out of my webcam, and you can go live from that if you want to.
Yeah.
But if you want to bump it up a bit, you can use, geez, I've got a lot of cameras here. So this is the Fujifilm X-T200 camera.
Here's a dark cam.
And on this cam, you can see it, the X-T200, it's in reverse. And now, basically, I can take a cable. You will see here, I will plug it in there, zap, just like that, switch on the camera. And the X-T200 and this, whoa, already. The X-T200 and this XA7 camera, just focus, they have webcam capabilities already built in.
Okay.
So now already I bumped up just like that my camera to, sorry, do I make you guys, oh, you're luckily not there. Just.
So remember, this is live, so it's going to be wobbly.
Wobbly. Whoa. So there we go. And I've got a better camera already than my camera in my computer.
Yeah.
So that's a cool thing about this X-T200 and the XA7. But then you can also get the website of Fujifilm, and right there you can download the Fujifilm X-Cam. You just go down, you say there Mac or Windows, go all the way down, do all that steps. There you go, download it, put it on your computer, and then you can use cameras like this. So you can have the XH1. John, you can show that to them. You can put the XT3 there, the XA7. You can even, I have to be careful with this guy. You can even use the most expensive webcam in the world, the GFX of Fujifilm, as your webcam.
Yeah.
And then you can even bump it more up to use a cine lens. Now this is only one cable, and it's simple, but already there's so much that can change.
Yes.
Using just a one source camera.
Exactly, and so we haven't even touched on stuff like broadcast cameras, etc. So this is only the first element.
And we're only on one camera in that chain at this stage.
Yes. So if you're running a system like that, Pierre, essentially you're taking out that app, that very handy app that you downloaded, that essentially takes this out. Yes. So that enables you to get whatever you're shooting on this camera straight through to your end user. Correct. Whether it's a Zoom meeting or Facebook Live or whatever.
Correct.
Okay.
Now you want to introduce more cameras.
Yes.
And presentations.
Yes.
Okay, what do we do now?
So, if we want to do 2 cameras or 3 cameras, now we've got to find a tool to process and package that image. Remember, it's all about blending these images and then packaging it. Whether you've got a client that wants a logo at the top or he wants his name at the bottom, those are all the kind of the details that you can input into a broadcast. So once you're going to multi-streams, you're going into broadcast territory rather than just streaming to your friends. So this is an 8 Mini Pro, but it's a small one. Yeah, so how many cameras can we do on this, Pierre?
You can do 4.
Okay.
Up to 4 cameras, which is quite nice with that one is you can just plug and play. So it does the conversion, but it's all on HDMI.
Yeah.
Which we are going to get to in a second. It's something you have to keep in consideration.
Yes.
When you're shooting HDMI, because the venue that you use might have the cameras a bit further away. Should we touch on that now?
I think so. I think when we look at this ecosystem, we've got to remember that they are linked. They don't stand alone.
No.
So they've got to work
with
as
cables.
one team. So we've got to get the information all the way through. So basically, between these two, you'll have a hard link. You'll have a cable of some sort, whether it be an SDI, whether it be an HDMI.
It will be a HDMI at this stage. Yeah.
So, but it gets linked up with a cable. So then when you've got all of your cameras in your mixing console, then you can, if you're shooting a pianist, you can show his or her hands, you can show the reverse of the crowd, you can show the beautiful grand piano they're playing, and you can obviously cut between these shots in the same way that you would, if you would watch a rugby match, you'd see the scrum half pass the ball and the camera would follow, and then it'll cut to a wide shot of the cross kick to the corner. You know, those guys have got multiple cameras.
Yes.
They've got
about
a lot,
13 on a rugby game.
So we're trying to recreate that on a very small scale, but we can do that in a live environment, which is quite exciting. So basically, one of the main things you've always got to think about is you've got to think about what are you streaming. Like we said, we started with a very simple, just broadcasting to your friends on Facebook Live. But now, you might be part of a community. Maybe you're part of a church that wants to stream their services out. You can maybe do that with one camera, or you can maybe incorporate the musical part of the church service too. And you might want to switch between cameras. You might want to put a nice little GoPro there by the drummer. But then obviously you're going to need something to process that image with. So once you're comfortable doing that, and you've got somebody to operate the equipment, and you can actually put a product out there, then you're moving into the next wagon of this train. And that's how do you get your image that you've just created, this beautiful product that you've just crafted, and you've spent hours rehearsing and you've got a whole band on stage, how do you get it to the guy watching it on his phone or on his computer at home?
That is the question.
So this is the internet.
Yeah.
So how do we get it into the internet, Pierre?
Well, you have to have a capture device. So this Atom Mini Pro has a capture device built in, which is quite nice. It came out this year, and you can connect it via USB to your computer, and it will see it as basically as a webcam. And you can then use that to put on Facebook Live. Let's stay at Facebook for now.
Yeah.
All right. If you don't have a switcher like that and you only have one camera, and you don't have a Fujifilm, which I highly recommend at this stage because it has the webcam capabilities in it, which is great, you can get something like this, also from the nice guys at Orms. You can get a web presenter from Blackmagic, or you can get a mini recorder from Blackmagic.
I just want to quickly get into something else.
So this connects via a Thunderbolt cable to your computer. It takes HDMI and it takes SDI, and then this little capture device tells your computer also that it's a webcam, for instance, and you can then select multiple cameras through this box. And this is how we started with this small unit.
Exactly.
And that goes out into the computer.
Yeah.
Now you have to get it.
But let's
somewhere else.
quickly just chat about the unit at the bottom.
Yes.
So this is the larger item. So now
Yeah.
you want to run 8 cameras. Your band has now grown. It has a horn section. So you want to be able to show them all.
So basically, this is the item, also made by Blackmagic. That's the item HD, Television Studio HD. It has 4 SDI inputs, which is a type of connection, and 4 HDMI inputs. Now, this is where we lost a lot of money. Sorry, Dirkie. I didn't do my research, and we bought HDMI cables because we can just take a HDMI cable out of a computer, out of a camera, and plug it in. When you test it at your dinner table, it works fine. Lekker. Now we go to the venue, we buy a 20-meter HDMI cable. We're going to put the guy down on that aisle, try to connect it, we don't get picture. So, HDMI doesn't run on very long lengths. It's also a very finicky cable. You have to be very, very careful with the HDMI cable. If it bends a little bit, you lose picture. So, what do you need then?
But that brings us back to the very first question you got to ask yourself is, what are you streaming?
What are you streaming? Correct.
And how are you doing it? Because
yeah, if
you've got all the cameras here on the table,
that's fine. HDMI is fine.
Yeah,
absolutely. And Atom Mini 4 channels, I don't believe you need more than 4 cameras if you are doing your home cooking show or a morning breakfast magazine show on YouTube.
For sure.
So, but we go to venues like a church or like a concert hall, and our cameras can't be as close as we want to the switcher, or we prefer them to get different angles. So now we have to run cables called SDI, which are these silver little shiny connectors. And remember, the input is at the bottom. You make that mistake hundreds of times, the output is on the top. So now you have SDI, but you have Fujifilm cameras and their output is HDMI. What do you do now, Dirkie? You phone John or JP or Orms and you say,
I've got a problem.
I've got a problem, I don't see a picture, I need something. And John says, well, you should have told me earlier because you need something. If you use an Atom Mini, this does the conversion by itself. You need a HDMI to SDI converter. Okay, now that's
There's another link in the chain.
another link in the chain. Another power Janus plug there as well with a 2-pron. But when you use a HD, a television HD, it doesn't do the conversion. All your cameras needs to be on the same frame rate and setting. For instance, 1080i at 50 frames. Okay?
So, but that means if your one camera is on 1080p,
it's not going to show up.
yeah, you're going to see a blank screen on your mixing.
And I'm sorry, they will also lost some money. But luckily, we found Orms. They told us that there's this fantastic device called up-down cross conversion. And you have this dip switches there, and you can say whatever goes in here. And this helps for presentations because sometimes the computer also needs to be on that conversion. Whatever goes in here, in here, on the out, it needs to be, well, we set it to 1080i 50 frames. And then it will show up on the mixer. So that we can do that now.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, cool. So I think you're geeking out too
Sorry,
much on
man,
the cables.
I like geeking.
I think we got to get back to the internet.
Okay.
How do we get it back into the internet? Because I think you stopped at the mini recorder.
Okay. So now we used Facebook, okay? But we don't want to go live on Facebook always. We want to go live on YouTube. You can go live on YouTube with one single click, but now we want to add some graphics or some things like that. Now there's some software. You get fantastic software that a lot of you guys probably use called OBS, Ecamm Live, OBS Streamlabs, which is also fantastic. It's more made for gamers, but it's a fantastic program, and you can do overlays and things like that. So John can probably, is there a comment there already that you can put up? Then they can see what a overlay is.
I just see a heart from Leroy.
Yeah, let's put the heart on. That's fine.
Hey Leroy, all the way from Berlin.
All the way from Berlin. There you can see. Now, you need an extra program to be able to do graphics like that. Thanks, Leroy, for checking in. And now, this is a one-line internet. Now you have to have stable internet wherever you are streaming from.
So,
Fiber.
Okay, so I've got a fiber line at home.
Yeah.
100 megabytes up and down, lightning fast. But sometimes when I'm streaming, I still get a buffering kind of image. It looks like something's not lacquer.
So Dirkie, what happens there? Look, we are doing this quite. We should start a breakfast show.
But yeah,
then you have to wake up early. I have to wake up early.
These are all the things we didn't know 5 months ago.
No, we didn't.
I thought the internet line that we've got is beefy, and it'll carry all the data out.
Yeah. Then the client says, but
something is weird.
This thing, there's something wrong. The audio makes a weird noise, and then the visual makes a quick jump or something like that. Now you need to go to the internet again. Not streaming, but researching a lot. And we are saving you some time and effort now. What the internet does, and this is straight through all the fast internet, is it blinks. So there's stages where it quickly goes down and up. And in that millisecond or something, obviously it can't transfer data, and it will blink. It stutter the image or the audio. This device has a buffering inside, so it buffers, it holds back the video and audio a little bit, and
so
then
gives you a bit of protection.
Yeah.
It's like someone walking with two heavy buckets and just stopping for a moment to take a breath, but then everybody sees that he stopped for a moment.
Yeah.
So some of these devices actually help you to mitigate that.
Yes.
Okay, so but having a singular internet line is probably not the only way of streaming.
No, it's not. So you can get something called like a bonding device. There are tons on the market. And what that does is it takes a little bit of data here and a little bit of data here, and it sends it to a cloud, and the cloud bonds it, and in the cloud you get your stream, and it pushes it out through whatever platform you want to go to.
Yes, but I think you missed a little piece there. It sends it up through multiple internet connections.
Yes.
So I also always thought about it as making 4 small pipes, 1 big pipe.
Correct.
Which is apparently not exactly correct, but it's kind of like the same thing.
Yes, that's how they explain it to me, but it distributes the bit rate of your stream through various.
Okay. I think you're geeking out too much again on bitrate. So bitrate is the quality that you're basically streaming your product into the internet for. So you'll see at the bottom of your YouTube there'll be a little gear that says quality, and you can select 240 or 480 or 720. So if you're only putting out 720, your end user will only be able to click on the 720 button.
Yeah, you won't be able to see 4K on an image that's been transmitted on 720. I'm going to use the terms.
Exactly. Okay, so now we've bonded, or we've single lined, or whatever, we've got this image into the internet. But where does it go now if it doesn't go to a platform like Facebook Live?
So then you have to use something that has a strong server.
Yes.
Something that's stable. Now there are different ones as well. We prefer Vimeo. Vimeo for us works very well because we also use pay gates.
Okay, so that brings us back to the first point once again. What are you streaming?
Correct.
Because you won't want to put up a pay gate if you're streaming a community service or a funeral or something like that. But if you're paying a band to play and you want to monetize it in a way, in an old school way of selling tickets, for instance, you don't want people to be sharing that link on their Facebook pages. No. You want them to buy a ticket, even though the whole family can watch on one ticket. So,
unfortunately.
so now you've got to obviously look at where you're streaming it to. Is it going to YouTube? Is it going to Vimeo? Is it going straight onto the ticketing platforms website? So those are also considerations to make. And when you think about which platform to choose, think about stuff like copyright infringement.
Which is huge.
If you've got a YouTube channel, and you go into the back end, you'll see there are a whole bunch of little ticks and boxes, and one of them says copyright strike, I think, is the term they use. And I think you get 3 strikes before you're out.
Before they freeze your account.
But even worse is if you're streaming a show to paying audience and your artist does a cover, but he does it so well that algorithm that sits at the back of YouTube says, oh no, but that's really Elvis Presley, isn't it?
Yeah.
And he just goes, nope, you don't have the rights, but
zip. And so this happened to us. We streamed classical music at the International Chamber Music Fest in Stellenbosch, where the piece they played, I mean, if the composer is dead by more than 50 years, the copyright disappears. So, but the algorithm still picked up that it's something in some movie or who knows from Sony, and they just mute our audio, and you can't do anything about it. You can only try to get it back after you've had a fight with Facebook about that. So the algorithm also picks up sometimes things that aren't true, but it happens.
Yeah,
it happens.
So it's a machine. You can't really have a conversation with it.
So what are you streaming, and where does it end up?
Yes, exactly. So we like to use Vimeo because it's a secure platform, and it doesn't have that very strict copyright infringement algorithm that runs. So that means
you can also make it private, and you can gate it.
Yes.
And
so that's also, once again, where is it going? Is it going to a private audience? Is it going to an open audience? So that all plays into this whole ecosystem of getting that to here. Okay, so
A lot. Already a lot.
so we obviously, these last two chains aren't, it's not as easy to stack them up like these, but you can see how many moving parts there are.
Already, yeah.
Okay, so I think I want to give some tips for people trying or wanting to start live streaming.
Yeah, are you sure? Are you sure? That's the first step. Are you sure you want to live stream?
Do we have any other questions there? Are there any technical questions for Pierre or not yet? Can I put a couple on in the spanner in the works here?
Koi.
Okay, I think let's quickly do our tips, and then if there are technical questions, we'll take them. But I think our first tip is ask questions and do research.
So if you buy your product online, do your research. Rather go to a shop where there's a sales assistant that can give you info, and you can ask questions, and if they gave you the wrong info, you have somebody to go back to and say, hey Buddha, you lied. But you can't do it when you just bought it online.
But once again, it comes down to what you're streaming
Exactly.
and how you're streaming it.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
So always, if you're doing it for a client and they say they want a high-level meeting between directors in New York and a guy in Moscow or whatever, then you can have the best cameras in your garage. You won't be able to do that because you're going to have to use another source. But if you've got a client that says, I want to live stream my yacht party from the waterfront on Friday, but I only want to send it to 2 links to my mom and to my one friend that couldn't make it, then it's a total different ballgame. Then you can bring all the
Why
toys.
is he sending it to his mom though?
I don't know. She's probably over 60. She can't come out of the home because of COVID.
Okay.
But anyway, do your research and remember that you've got to, when you've decided on what you want and you've now explored all the options, you've built your system in your head, and obviously you've got a budget for it, so you obviously got to, that's a very restricting element in this whole ecosystem that we haven't really touched. So, but once you've decided on what you want to buy and you know what you want to stream, and perhaps you've got some of these tools lying around already, then build your system and test it, and test it again, and test it under all of the weird circumstances you
Just
never thought.
Play with the gear.
Yeah.
The whole time and see. The only place where you will learn is out of mistakes, unfortunately. And you don't want that to be on a client's bill or live, because we are going live here. So.
And the internet is forever, unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
So only once you know your gear can you troubleshoot on set. Can you isolate what it can be? So we're not getting signal, but the camera is on.
The lens cap is on.
Okay, so the lens cap is off. But is it plugged in? Is it switched on? Is it plugged in the bottom input on the ATEM?
Yeah.
So then you can
Then you know.
you can work, if you work structured, you can comb through your setup and you can isolate those problems, and it'll be a much less stressful experience for everyone. Okay, we've got a question. Let's see. How about capturing the audio? That is amazing.
Oh,
Great.
yes.
But that also brings me to my next tip, is collaborate.
Yes.
So don't try to do everything yourself from the start. Get guys who know what they're doing on the audio front, because having to think about all of these visual elements is surely enough to keep you busy for a couple of days.
Yes.
You don't have to worry about things like mixing the band in your venue or in your church. How does it sound? You can't do both of those.
No.
So collaborate with people who know what they're doing on certain fronts, and audio is a great way of doing that.
So when you listen to the talk, that's where I started, was with audio.
Exactly.
And
It's interesting that a lot of online platforms that you use for webinars, etc., they prioritize audio over video because it's much easier to follow a conversation if you hear what someone's saying, even if their video is a bit glitchy or whatever.
Yeah.
But you can still actually communicate with someone. And even though a stream most of the time is a one-way flow of information, I mean, if you can hear, then it's much easier to follow. So that'll be, who was that, Chris? But anyway, Chris, thanks for that question. I think that's a great one.
Yeah. So basically what you need is a audio interface if you are using just a normal camera, which will help a lot. Audio interface, a microphone. With this is a fancy microphone, so it has a transmitter and a receiver on the camera over there. But you can run cables to an audio interface. On your program, Facebook Live, I'm sure you can do it on Facebook Live or Zoom. There's under the mic input drop-down menu, you can select that interface and you can run your audio through that.
Yes.
Now you can run it straight without any processing, so you can just do one line, or you can run it into a mixing console, EQ it a bit, add some compression if you really want to, then take it from the main left and right out into an audio interface, and then stream that processed audio, which is obviously better, to your stream. There are, however, a few things you have to keep in consideration. We run a mixing console and then we run it into our ATEM right over here. We have a left and right input. So that input goes out of program out and we can send that to the internet. But audio is always faster than video. It's something you have to keep in mind. If you're not streaming a band where you see actual quick movements, you can get away with it. This device has delayed, the ATEM Mini Pro has a delay function of the audio already built in, and we figured that it could be anything from 90 milliseconds up to 180 milliseconds faster than the video. So that's, again, test. You want your audio to be in sync. When somebody goes like that, it needs to be in sync.
Yeah, you most probably won't pick it up with your naked eye if you're not trained to do so, but something would look off to you.
Correct. Yeah,
It's
and
suppose
especially a
it's-
band. The stick will already be in the air before then you hear the sound.
I suppose
Da,
it's in the same kind of way that cinematic frame rate is a little bit different than a regular frame rate, and
Correct.
how your brain processes that information to make you think that this is amazing.
Yeah.
But anyway, okay, we've got another question. Let's quickly do it. Can you utilize Bonded Tech or Zoom and Teams and go to webinar and such as an app if you don't have an encoder, like a Teradek or a Live View? Yes. So, okay, so maybe you should talk about that. But that obviously comes into this link of getting your content into the internet.
So with regards to Zoom and Teams, yeah, it's difficult to use a bonding device there. It's difficult. It's better to use bonding devices on something like YouTube, Facebook, Vimeo, where you can send a RTMP, because that is how a bonding device works. Or you marry a specific profile to that bonding device, your YouTube profile, your Facebook profile, and you can choose that as the destination. Yeah. And that bonding device will send it there.
Okay.
But something like...
But yeah, it also once again comes back to the first point of what are you streaming?
Yeah.
I'm not sure what you would like to live broadcast on Teams that you would need a bonding instrument for. But yeah, there are so many interchangeable parts in this system that some are either or or some you can use in combination.
And you can make crazy hybrids. We are doing unilaterals. Unilaterals means we have a switcher that does something, it goes into another switcher that does something, and that goes out to the destination. Or you can have multiple streams going in via this gear. It's usually what our client wants, and we're trying to build our system, the Lego blocks of.
Because because people expect the super sport truck, even though you get there with your small car. They want that kind of functionality. So there's
and then when you get it right, they're blown away that your OB truck is only a Polo.
So there's another comment I can see from here from Wynand Olivier. Now
He was our floor manager.
Yes, and he says have a checklist.
Thanks, Wynand. He knows.
Because something as simple as, is your computer on power, Pierre, or is it running on battery at this stage?
Yes. So what happened is there were a lot of things, because when you go live, and if you've done this, it's so stressful beforehand. So there's a lot of things that's happening. Is the pay gate going to have a handshake and all that? And I'm busy doing my private pilot license, and something that a pilot does is he has a checklist. If he wants to or not, he does go through it every time before he takes off. And I incorporated that into our business model, where we will go, and I have a checklist that I've set up with Christoph, and we are 2 people. We have to be 2 people checking the list that, have you done that, have you done that, have you done that? Yeah, something like, do we have power on the cameras? Do we have power on the computers?
Yeah.
And check it off. So I usually ask my floor manager that he has to give me time before we go live, and they push me and say, have I done my checklist? So that we've ticked off everything. Did you press record?
So yeah, because basically if one of these links in the chain, the battery goes flat, then you lose your entire production.
Correct.
So yeah. So that brings us back to working structured. So having that kind of structure to work from, like a checklist, like Wynand said, it eliminates problems down the line for you, or it could potentially eliminate. Are you streaming to the right pages? Are you streaming to the right platforms? Are you not spamming some of your friends with stuff they really don't want to see?
Should we tell the story?
I don't think so, but we've done it multiple times. But sometimes it works out better than others. Quickly, let's see. There's another question I can see from Lishwin. I think that's correct. So just when clients are zooming in the middle of nowhere, to be able to rely on a bonded connection for reliability. I think that brings us back to, I suppose you can look at that, but I mean it's a super expensive tool to use for something like a meeting.
Yes. Rather put the video off and just use the audio. That's already much less data you're gonna use for the meeting. You still get your message across.
But you've got to remember also, when you do use a bonding instrument, that you've got to have multiple sources.
Yes.
So just because you're in the middle of the Tankwa doesn't mean that where you bought your Teradek in the back or your live view or something, that you'll be able to stream something out. If there isn't reception for your 2 modems on the side, or there isn't a fiber connection which you can patch into, you've got to have a couple of connections to bond for a bonding device to actually be effective. So it is about where you are, for sure, but it's also what infrastructure you can tap into in that space. So bonding devices are great. They are really a game changer, but they are not always the answer to all of your questions. They are quite an interesting tool to learn to use. I think maybe we should go back to where the content goes to. So it also depends on the bit rates you're sending. If you're doing something that requires a low bit rate, it's not a lot of data that you're sending, you won't need a bonding device. But if you want to send something that's 10 megs per second or whatever at a 1080p or 1080i, then you are going to need something like that. It doesn't matter how crazy your fiber line
Correct.
is.
But if your camera stands still like that, like this camera is static, there's not a lot that's changing inside the frame. So the camera doesn't have to work as hard by refreshing the frame. But if there's movement, the bitrate will automatically go up.
Yeah.
So again, what are you streaming? Is it only you talking into the camera? If it's that, I won't use a bonding device.
So there's an interesting tool that you can use to try and understand the bit rates that get sent. So for instance, if you look at, I'm not sure whether YouTube's got the same function, but if you monitor a stream going out on Vimeo, for instance, on the left-hand side of your dashboard, there's a
health button.
Stream health option. Yes. So then you can actually, if you watch what's happening on screen and you keep your eye on the bitrate that's being sent, you'll see in transitions, for instance, if you do an award show and you fade to black and then you come out of black, for instance, with a new segment, you'll see that the bitrate most probably just drops a little bit for that.
Yeah.
So that just tells you there's less information. There's just a black screen. Or for instance, if the holding screen if the holding screen is not moving, it's only got a ticker, then when you bust straight into your live show with a whole bunch of lights, you'll probably see the bitrate picking up.
If you have adaptive bitrate,
yes.
which is
so that
what
if you're using an online cloud base to stream out pre-recorded content live, that's a very easy way to pick up those kind of bit rates. We've got another question. Yes. Okay, so Vainant says, perhaps you can tell us 3 of the biggest problems or hiccups you've experienced, and more importantly, how you fixed it. Okay, so creating events on your platform that you go live, understand how they work. On Vimeo, you get once off and you get recurring. Once you've activated a once off event and you exit that stream, you won't be able to go back to it.
No.
So if you sent that to your ticketing company and you did a test by accident, or perhaps you scrolled with your mouse and you said go live on your show link, then you are going to have to replace it. But if you know your system, then you know you can replace it.
Yes.
But just not in the middle of the show, or in the middle of the show, I suppose. But if that's something that happens beforehand.
If it's a free show and you have this link already and you send it out to everybody, but you by accidentally went live, then that link will only be that dry run you did or something, and then you have to send a new link to everybody. So
that's a possible disaster.
Possible disaster. We have had that problem, and when we were streaming the software, where the software crashed and we have to generate a new link, because as soon as the stream stopped, that event closes and that link is
so somebody who bought a ticket will click through on their streaming link and they'll say that this event is ended.
Yes.
But it's not really started yet.
Another,
No, you can go. I think a lot of the very problematic things that really kind of feel out of your control is in this getting your product out,
because you don't see it's
studio.
Not something you can touch.
Yes, and I always thought that the digital handshake was just a hoax for non-technical people, just to get bamboozled.
It's definitely not, and it happens. It still happens. It's something you have to make peace with.
So if your internet line blinks for long enough, you can lose your handshake.
You can.
And you can lose your broadcast
link.
link.
Has happened to us.
So yeah, that's happened to us.
Yeah.
Maybe let's go to this side.
Before we get here.
Yeah, in terms of cameras, and I think when you're doing a multicam operation, a very important thing is communication.
Correct. So communication is key. That's a line that my students used to know that I say a lot, and you hear me say that. And that's just communicating to each other via comm sets or however you can, but communicate. Don't stay quiet, even before a stream. If you see something, we have a brilliant intern working with us, and we taught her that if she sees something wrong, she must tell us. And she actually picked up once when I didn't roll on the cameras after a long day of shooting. I forgot to roll on the cameras and we rolled on the sound, but she picked up and she stopped me and we had to cut. If she didn't talk, if she were too shy, that would have been a complete disaster, because it's a lot of people that next time rehearse.
But luckily that wasn't live. That was a pre-record.
Oryx, yeah.
But yeah, for sure. I think, and even remember when you're cutting something live on one of these devices, once you cut on it, and you send it to the program stream, then that's that goes out.
Yeah.
So if your cameraman doesn't know you're on him, and he wants to reframe, or he wants to quickly zoom in on the drummer's feet that's doing a crazy double bass, and you didn't tell him that you're on him, you're going to look quite crazy, and it might not suit the style of the broadcast.
Correct. Or cut to a different camera while this camera is moving. So it's all anticipate. Sometimes the church uses one moving camera, and we do it a lot. If there's not enough budget for a lot of operators, we have one operator, and we have static cameras, and then we cut to a static, change the shot, cut back. Another thing where there can be possible disaster is rushing. So always add, our rule is add 2 hours. So whenever you have to be 2 hours before your stream, you have to be ready.
Yeah.
It's just, otherwise there's not enough time, and it saved our asses.
Yeah, it just saved us a couple of
times. So don't rush into a stream. If you rush into a stream, there's a lot that can go wrong, and that's where the whole checklist came from, and that's why the whole 2 hours before stream came from.
Yeah, even if you're shooting in a studio, I mean, it's still, somebody could have borrowed your laptop and changed the settings on the interface,
which happened to our colleague over here.
So all of those things can happen, and you've got to double check them. You've got to have a sheet that you've got all your streams on the right ones. Feyenoord, one of the worst things that we've done is we've gone out on the wrong channels, or perhaps not the wrong channels, but additional channels that weren't applicable to the broadcast. So if it's something like a live wine tasting with a whole bunch of wine masters, then it's probably more forgivable. But if it's a personal matter like somebody's funeral, then you don't want to make that mistake.
No.
So, and that once again brings us back to know your setup, because you know when you set up the Vimeo live event, you can click all the connected Facebook pages, all of the connected YouTubes if you want to multi-stream. But you've got to remember that if your colleague comes after you and he sets up another stream and he sets it up for his preferences, those preferences get saved to all of this. So leave them off and just activate them before you go live. And that you can only do if you've got enough time.
Yeah.
And if it's part of your checklist.
Yes.
Otherwise, you can end up with a red face. And it has happened to us once or twice. Yeah. So,
so there, if you are keen to do live streaming, there are brilliant cameras from Fujifilm that's actually now on special. So you get, John, if you can show this page over here, you can see there the XA7 for the month of October. You don't have a lot of time left. When you buy it, you get 3,400 Rand cash back. And I promise you this works. We have done it with a lens for my brother when that was on special, and Fujifilm really does pay back. Or you can get the that was the XA7, excuse me. Or you can get the XT3, which is a brilliant camera, and you can also get 3,400 Rand cash back. Both of these cameras will work fantastic for live streaming events because you have the color profiles, you can set your white balance, you can set your exposure, and it's quite user friendly.
Yeah, that's something we didn't touch on, but in terms of how you shoot certain productions and how you light certain productions, and that I think we can once again bring back to one of the tips is to collaborate, to get somebody in if you don't know how lighting works to help you with that.
Yes.
Because once again on a film set, all of the different departments can there do their job beautifully, but if there's one that's out, then the whole production suffers. So yeah, rather ask around, get people that know what they're doing in their different departments, and collectively you'll make a better product.
Exactly. I think it was actually a friend of mine that said, if you want to be better in your job, hire people that's better than you.
Okay, here's an interesting one from Vainant's full of questions tonight, but it is a very interesting one. How careful should you be regarding the wording when you market an event as being live streamed, or being pre-recorded, being premiered, because there is a distinction between having a 100% live production go out, and you cut it there and you can feel the energy on set, you know, and even though there isn't a crowd or anything like that, you can feel the energy of being live.
Yeah.
But obviously we can't always do that, or there's some content that gets scheduled for times that and the artist's not available or whatever, and you want to be able to then live stream it, but it is really recorded.
Yes.
So I think that is, you can obviously make it look live in terms of you'll get all of the live tags and
time of days.
Yeah,
The same as
just-
what it is now.
yeah, but just in terms of broadcasting it, YouTube can tell you it's live, but you'll only
Yep.
see from what you see on screen whether it was recorded or whether it's actually happening now. And I think there's a place for both of those.
Correct. But
But-
don't call it a live broadcast
Yeah.
when it's the sun has set and
Yeah.
in the broadcast the sun is still up.
Yeah.
Don't
So-
call it a live broadcast.
So
You can say it's a live show.
It's
but
recorded live,
recorded live.
because then you can
Correct.
do a bit of an audio mix and all kinds of things. And I think we are almost out of time. Thank you very much for having us here.
Geez, we can talk a lot, huh?
Yes, I don't think we've skimmed the surface, but yeah. But when the lockdown started, we obviously had to fast track our plans on live streaming quite significantly. And I think that the 4 weeks that everything was closed actually played to our advantage, because we could do more research, and we weren't able to buy some of these items. We weren't able to get stock of them, so it forced us to look at different ways of setting up a system that works for us.
Yes.
So yeah, you're more than welcome to get in touch with us if you want to know more about how to set up a system that works for you. We know some people that sell the gear, so we can refer you. But yeah, rather ask, because a lot of the questions and a lot of the troubleshooting that you do, because of all these different permutations in terms of the gear and this train of information that goes from the one side to the other, there are very few people that might have also had the same kind of flow, or these same elements. So sometimes information is quite hard to find. And if you don't really know the technicals behind it, like Pierre and Christophe, they spend hours and days on these things, but ask questions, and there are forums and there are other people that know, and even if they don't know, they'll tell you what they know. I think it's a community that shares knowledge.
Correct.
And because we want to create an ecosystem where we can produce great content in this country, and I think we've got the talent to do that, but now we just got to enable and get people to trust the systems and then put out good product.
Yeah.
Um,
If you want to get a hold of us, you can email us at hello@dpk, like the logo at the bottom of the screen
yeah.
over here, and we will happily reply and consult
we'll-
you. Or
We'll send you a link of our first stream, and you can see how terrible it was. And then you'll see how much better we've gotten, but how much room we've got to improve still. So thank you very much to Fujifilm and to Orms for hosting us tonight.
Thank you so much.
I hope that shed some light on the very misleading title of making live streaming simple, because it can be super simple, but it also can be super
complicated. We can add all this in, and then it just gets so much more difficult.
So stack it up.
Stack it up.
So happy streaming, and hopefully we'll see some great content coming out of all of the people watching the stream tonight.
Yeah.
We are keeping our eyes glued to the screens. Thank you very much, guys.
Have a good night.